Imagine for a moment that an African nation, long considered far from the centers of global industry, suddenly unveiled a vehicle that could disrupt the balance of power in one of the world's largest markets. Not from Japan with its precision engineering, not from Germany with its century-old reputation, and not even from the United States with its cutting-edge brands, but from Burkina Faso, a country that many people outside Africa barely know, yet one that has now delivered a challenge to the global auto industry nobody anticipated. This is not a rumor or a symbolic political stunt, but a real machine designed and built to work, carrying within it the seeds of something much bigger than transportation, the liberation of a continent from economic dependency. For over 100 years, Africa has been told its role in the industrial chain: supply the raw materials and let others do the rest, with the West, Japan, and later China building entire fortunes on this model. Cobalt from the Democratic Republic of Congo, lithium from Zimbabwe, copper from Zambia, oil from Nigeria, all shipped out cheaply, processed abroad, converted into products sold back to African consumers at prices they could barely afford. And this was no accident of history, but a deliberate design where foreign corporations, backed by their governments, ensured Africa remained a warehouse of raw minerals, never the workshop of finished goods, keeping the profits, technology, and prestige elsewhere, and Africa trapped in a cycle of dependence that felt almost impossible to escape. Then came the unexpected. Burkina Faso announced it had developed its own electric vehicle, a fully functioning car engineered for daily use, conceived, designed, and built by African engineers using African resources with African drivers in mind. Boasting over 300 kilometers of range, chargeable in half an hour, and rugged enough for the continent's harsh road conditions, proving Africa can innovate at the highest level, breaking the unwritten rule that Africa was never supposed to cross, challenging decades of an auto industry that operated like an exclusive club, Europe with Mercedes and BMW, the US with Ford and Tesla, Japan with Toyota and Honda, China rising rapidly with BYD and others, always positioning Africa as an outsider, a source of minerals, a consumer of vehicles, never a creator. And Burkina Faso shattered that assumption, opening doors for other nations, terrifying global automakers not because one car will bankrupt Toyota or Volkswagen, but because it represents a new trajectory for Africa, a continent that can stop exporting raw materials cheaply, process, refine, and manufacture products within its borders, suddenly shifting the balance of power, making Africa an active competitor, and threatening multi-billion-dollar empires built on cheap African exports. Toyota, the world's largest automaker, understands this as its supply chains have depended heavily on African minerals, and Burkina Faso's EV proves Africa can keep its resources, build products, and sell them to the world, sending Japan scrambling to secure supply lines before the idea spreads, while the vehicle itself becomes a symbol of possibility, telling African people they are capable of designing, building, and competing in industries once declared off-limits, showing governments that dependency is not permanent, and global powers that the old extraction system is ending, shifting African schoolchildren's perception from mere consumers of foreign technology to creators, changing self-perception, which forces the world to adjust, while challenges like scaling production, building infrastructure, and financing expansion remain. The belief that it cannot be done is already broken, and the door to a self-sufficient industrial Africa is open, making the story of one vehicle, the story of a continent at a crossroads, determining the future of Africa's industry and position in the global economy. When news broke of Burkina Faso's EV, Japan, and particularly Toyota, felt the tremor most strongly, as their EV strategy depends heavily on minerals imported from Africa, including copper from Zambia, the lifeblood of electric vehicles. And Burkina Faso's announcement inspired African governments to reconsider resource sovereignty, seeing that their copper, cobalt, lithium, and other minerals could stay and fuel domestic industries, leading to laws restricting unprocessed exports, as seen in Zimbabwe and the DRC, creating a shift where Africa is no longer a mere warehouse but a workshop. While Toyota and Japanese officials rushed to secure minerals through diplomatic deals, aid packages and investments. Yet Africa has learned to read desperation and hidden strings in partnerships, realizing that control over minerals allows nations like Zambia to influence the global EV industry, potentially redirecting copper for domestic use and forcing global automakers to renegotiate on Africa's terms, turning dependency into leverage, mirroring historic moments when colonies broke free from empires, showing that Africa now holds keys to the future of electrification. Examining historical exploitation, Nigeria's oil wealth left citizens impoverished while foreign corporations profited. Ghana's gold was largely exported raw. DRC's cobalt, essential for batteries, was extracted at great human cost. Zimbabwe's lithium faced foreign domination, until recent export bans encouraged local processing. And Rwanda demonstrated that even a small nation with limited resources can prioritize innovation and manufacturing, proving that Africa can industrialize when refusing dependency. And Burkina Faso's EV joins this trajectory, igniting a chain reaction that threatens corporations from Toyota to Tesla. This occurs within a geopolitical and economic system that has historically constrained Africa through debt traps, structural adjustment programs, trade deals skewed toward raw exports, hidden contract clauses, political pressure, media narratives, and aid tied to foreign agendas. All mechanisms designed to keep Africa supplying resources while others profit. With past leaders like Patrice Lumumba and Thomas Sankara punished for challenging this system, while media and aid continue to reinforce dependency, and yet, the emergence of African-built industries like Burkina Faso's EV cracks this system, showing that choices can be changed, and as nations industrialize, refine their resources and reject unfair deals, the global hierarchy begins to shift, threatening powers who rely on Africa for cobalt, lithium, oil, and gas, making the rise of African manufacturing an economic and political force that cannot be ignored, proving that the old rules are not laws of nature but choices. And the question now is whether other African nations will follow Burkina Faso's path or remain trapped in global exploitation. The story of Africa is no longer just about exploitation, dependency, or lost potential. The emergence of homegrown industries like Burkina Faso's electric vehicle marks a turning point in the continent's history, not only in the auto industry, but in Africa's mindset, policy, and global standing, showing that for the first time in decades, there is a clear vision. Africa is ready to take control of its destiny, to act in unity, invest in local industries, and refuse the old rules imposed by foreign powers. Across the continent, there is rising awareness that resources alone are not enough. The key lies in transforming raw materials into high-value products, an industrial awakening that demonstrates Africa does not have to remain a supplier of minerals, oil, and agricultural commodities while others reap the profits, but can refine its own cobalt, lithium, and copper, process its oil and gold, build electronics, electric vehicles, and renewable energy infrastructure, and retain the wealth locally. Burkina Faso's EV proves this awakening, showing that even countries with limited industrial infrastructure can innovate, design, and manufacture competitive technology when they prioritize local talent, resources, and vision, sending a message to every African government and entrepreneur that industrial self-reliance is not just possible, it is necessary. The ripple effect is enormous. Nigeria could invest in domestic refineries and EV assembly plants. Zambia could use its copper to build batteries and motors locally. Ghana could manufacture electronics and jewelry from gold. And Rwanda and Zimbabwe could expand technology and energy industries. This is not fantasy, but a realistic roadmap when national policies prioritize local development over foreign dependency. The critical factor is unity. Africa has enormous potential, but nations have often been divided politically, economically, and culturally. Yet a united Africa, or regional industrial coalitions, could leverage collective strength to negotiate on equal terms with global powers, coordinating resource management, industrial development, shared infrastructure, standardized regulations, and pooled investments to participate in large-scale industrial projects, creating economies of scale that rival foreign corporations. controlling resource pricing, supply chains, and production priorities, and reducing vulnerability to external manipulation. Unity provides leverage. A single country may face intense pressure, but a coalition industrializing simultaneously forces foreign corporations to negotiate fairly or lose access to entire markets. The 21st century offers a unique opportunity with green energy, electric vehicles, renewable energy, and battery storage, all dependent on Africa's abundant minerals: lithium, cobalt, copper, rare earths, and transitional oil, allowing the continent to define the next industrial revolution, processing, assembling, and innovating locally, producing EVs, batteries, and renewable infrastructure, not just participating but leading the global economy. Challenges remain. Foreign powers accustomed to dependency will resist deploying economic pressure, lobbying, sanctions, or covert operations. Global corporations may threaten to exit, and financial institutions may impose debt or conditional aid, while internal obstacles like limited infrastructure, corruption, and industrial capacity persist. Yet Burkina Faso's EV shows even a small, resource-limited nation can innovate when leveraging local talent, vision, and resources effectively. And with political will, strategic planning, and prioritizing local development, Africa can overcome these challenges. Industrial success depends heavily on innovation, investing in education, research, and technology, empowering African engineers, designers, and scientists to create solutions for local conditions, just like Burkina Faso's EV, engineered for African roads, climate, and realities, serving as a blueprint for industrialization. The ultimate question is whether African nations will seize this moment, prioritize local development, enforce fair resource policies, and invest in homegrown industries, or succumb to external pressures, exploitative contracts, and perpetuate dependency. The answer will determine Africa's economic future and global standing. Burkina Faso's EV is more than a car. It is a symbol, a challenge, and a vision, proving that industrialization and global competition are possible, igniting a continent-wide movement towards self-sufficiency and prosperity. The world may resist, but Africa has what no foreign power can take away: its resources, its people, and its creativity. By investing in industries, uniting regionally, and innovating locally, Africa can rewrite the global economic rules, moving from dependency to leadership, from supplier to manufacturer, from consumer to innovator, shaping a future where the continent is bold, united, self-reliant, and unstoppable. The moment is now. The choice is theirs, and if Africa acts wisely, the global economic order will never be the same again.